Well, but my freshman year in college, I had a very significant back injury while playing mud football with my buddies. So I decided one day that I was going to go out and run a mile, 1 mile. Ran a mile, and my back hurt so bad that it took me a week to recover. And because my body kept recovering and I could work and manage the pain and then have the pain subside, my body got stronger and stronger and stronger to where...
That's Andy Farina, and this is your host, Santosh Shiva. Welcome to another episode of RunYogi Diaries. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps the cause. You heard right. Andy had many challenges and disadvantages physically when he was growing up as well as when he was in college. But that's not kept him from dreaming and going after becoming an ultrarunner. Since 2009, he has achieved numerous endurance milestones, including running obstacle races, finishing Georgia Death Race and qualifying for the Western States 100, and even completing many 100-mile races as well. And all this he did with 2 of his spinal discs more than 50% degraded. It's just amazing and mind-blowing sometimes to think of it. So we get to talk about how he overcame his physical disadvantage, his pursuit of fitness as a career, and the role of faith in all his life and his endurance pursuits, and the importance of eating right. Let's dig in. Hey, Andy. Welcome to RunYogi Diaries.
Man, wonderful to be here, Santosh. I really appreciate you having me be a part of this.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So we have a lot to talk about. So before that, I'll let you kind of quickly do an introduction of yourself, and then we'll kind of jump in.
Certainly. Well, I'm Andy Farina. I live with my lovely wife, Suzanne, of almost 34 years here in Gainesville, Florida. That's North Central Florida, home of the Fighting Gators at University of Florida. And we have 5 children, 18 to 29. And love living in Florida, that's for sure.
So let's get started in the beginning, right? Your childhood, and then we'll come forward as we speak.
Okay. Well, I was the third of 4 children. I grew up in a lower middle class Italian family just outside of Brooklyn. We lived on Long Island. I would say probably the first shocker was I was born 7 weeks early, and my legs were deformed to some level, and the doctors told my mom that I would never walk. And I was in casts and braces I was told for about the first 5 years of my life. I don't remember. I've seen pictures with the casts as a baby. I don't remember them that much. I do remember probably about 5 or 6 years old asking my mom when I could wear normal shoes like the other kids, because after the casts and braces, I had to wear corrective shoes. But fortunately, there came a point when I was able to walk. So the doctors upgraded me to say, well, he'll walk, but then he'll walk with a limp. And then there was no limp. And then I was upgraded to, well, he'll walk, but he won't be able to run. And so, there was a long foundation of, I don't want to say negative, but at least challenging feedback on my ability to even walk or move as a boy.
Wow. And so you seem to have made progress as you were growing older as a boy. Was there something you did? Was it a mental thing, or did you do something that got you to improve as you got older?
Well, I think it was really just a kind gift from above in many ways, because I was like a normal kid. I went to school. I saw the other kids running around and playing. I wanted to run around and play. The neighborhood kids would, play stickball in the street or throw the football around, and so I just wanted to do things, and I would just try. I didn't know that I couldn't do it until I couldn't do it. I was a musician when I was young, so I was used to the discipline of practice and repetition. So, but I think part of it, going back to being the stubborn Italian, is, if you want to do something, you just don't give up. I mean, I know it sounds simple, but it's true. Like, I think it still plays a major role in my life now. Running ultra marathons is that, I don't feel exceptionally skilled or anything like that, but it's like, the starting gun goes off, you start moving, and then you don't give up, no matter what happens, no matter what challenges you face, no matter how bad you feel. So I do think that not giving up, kind of marked my life young. And then as I got older and I saw other kids playing sports and I wanted to play sports, I just kept trying new things, and I kept trying to overcome my limitations and weaknesses, because I wanted something more than what I had. And so I do think desire plays a role in our development as men and women. What we really want is worth pushing for.
So, and you moved to college, and you had fair amount of sports in college, right?
Well, but my freshman year in college, I had a very significant back injury while playing mud football with my buddies. And that was kind of the second big blow, where I was out of commission for about 6 months, and there was some talk of, are you going to be able to run or whatnot? But I kept at it after that 6 months of initial pain and suffering. I kept at it, and about once a year I'd have a major back problem, and then it became once every 6 months, and then it was about once every 3 months. And by the time I turned 30 years old, it was like I was just incapacitated most of the time. I couldn't run, I couldn't play basketball, and it was another time where it was like, you're probably done with running and any impact sports. So by that point, I was out of running and racing for the next, believe it or not, 18 years.
Wow.
I call it the world's longest comeback. I didn't want to have surgery. I had multiple herniated discs, and I didn't want to have surgery, but I was in pain 24/7 for a total of 23 years. Wow. Not something I wish on anybody.
Wow. And then you had this awakening, something changed, and you said, I want to start running again, right? Yes. After this 18 plus years. So tell us about that moment. What were you doing? What were you thinking? What happened? What got you triggered?
That's another great question. Thank you for walking me down memory lane here. I love to tell the story because I hope, my desire is that many find hope in this, is because people are often told they can't do things, whether it's by family members or medical people or this or that. And it may be true, but I have found with many of my clients and my friends that it's often not true. So my awakening actually occurred when I was 48 years old. But I think the awakening really, as I think back on it, started 30 years earlier when I was 18. When I was 18 years old, and this after living 5 years as a highly rebellious, troubled teenager, I didn't grow up as any kind of a religious person. But when I was 18 years old, I started reading about the life and teachings of Jesus, and I didn't know anything about it, but all I knew is I really like this guy and I like what he says. And that set me on a journey over the next years where I became open to spirituality and, asking God for help and asking him for insight. And I would say maybe living more by faith versus just by my own pulling myself up by the bootstraps. So that change in my life, and my life drastically changed after that encounter when I was 18. So here I was at 48. I had been receiving bad news for many years. Like, even though I was told I should not run by very capable medical professionals, there was something in my spirit, in my heart, that said, you need to run. And it's hard to explain. I believe it was God speaking to me. Others may not see it that way. It's totally okay. But I felt like there was an inner voice that was saying to me, don't give up. You need to run. So I decided one day that I was going to go out and run a mile, 1 mile. Hadn't run in many years. I went out, ran a mile, and my back hurt so bad that it took me a week to recover. But it recovered. So after a week, what did I do? I went out and ran another mile. It hurt really bad. It took a week to recover. What did I do? I went out, ran another mile. And then next thing I knew, it was taking 5 days to recover. And then it was 3 days to recover. And then it was a day to recover. So then I decided I was going to run a local race called the Gator Gallop. It's a 2-mile race. And I went out and ran it. And I ran it pretty fast. And I felt pretty good. But my back hurt so bad after that, I was back to a week recovery. But I ran it fast, so I figured I really pushed myself. Well, then I went from Gator Gallop to Warrior Dash, which is a 5K obstacle race. And I just kept pushing for the next goal. And because my body kept recovering and I could work and manage the pain and then have the pain subside, my body got stronger and stronger and stronger to where then I was running races and everything else could hurt, but my back didn't hurt.
Wow.
It was amazing. And so when I was 49 years old, I made the decision that I was going to run a 50K trail race, which is 31 miles before I turned 50 years old. And so I trained for 6 weeks, which wasn't enough, but it worked. I was able to complete the 50K. I finished that first race when I was 49. And then as you mentioned, I proceeded to run an additional about 23, I think it's 23 more ultra marathons, anywhere from 31 to 100 miles. I've done about 5 road marathons, and then I've probably done about 20 or 25 obstacle races in the last 8 or 9 years. And I'm happy to say that that my back rarely hurts anymore, ever.
Wow. That's amazing. People are listening to this. That's a amazing, miraculous story. And I think one thing that and I think what I also hear is your personal will was an important factor in this whole journey, isn't it?
Yes.
And the body has an ability to heal itself. I read about it all the time. We hear about it all the time.
Yes.
You refer to God. You can call it God. You can call it nature. You can call it consciousness, whatever. But we are all a part of a larger energy force, which is capable of healing us. And how you harness it and access it could be different depending on which system of training you come from. But
Yes.
your personal will is a very important aspect. isn't it?
Yes, a great point. I have found that you know there's lots of. It's obvious that there's most things we cannot control, but one thing we can control is ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your point about faith is very important because I've had a few other guests on this podcast who have transformed their life through faith and endurance. And I see a huge connection between the two because I think what I'm also beginning to realize is that either you are acting in faith or you're acting in fear. And when you can choose to move from fear to faith, there is a possibility that you will take action because you trust something other than your own concerns and fears and opinions and blah, blah, right? Which stops you from taking action.
I applaud your connection and all that. I mean, that's a great insight and expression of wisdom that it's the reason why I named my coaching company Fearless Health. So when we can put faith in God or wherever you choose to put your faith in, whatever is bigger than you, and even have faith in your own abilities, knowing you have limitations, I think it does free us up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to zoom in a little bit about your ultra journey itself, right? So you've done 24 races, and I was reading that you've done some really tough ones out there, like the Georgia death race. You qualified for the Western State. So tell us a little bit about what was your toughest, the most challenging race or challenging moment in your ultra journey. Was that a particular race or was it a particular, training?
So my ultra journey has been a phenomenal one. It's been a transforming life experience. But I would say two things. Talk about most difficult. Probably three things come to mind. One is a simple one, just the consistency that I have to day after day, year after year, deal with everything I have to deal with to keep training. That's very challenging. It is very easy to give up. But it just depends on what you truly want and how bad do you truly want it. And if it's a noble purpose, then it's worth paying the price for. So that's one. But as for racing, it seems that the 100-mile distance for me is my stretch goal. I have not failed in many races. Failed maybe be too strong of a word, but for me, it feels that way because my goal is to get to the finish line. But about 1/3 of the people that start a 100-miler don't make it. I've done 4 so far. 2 I've finished, and 2 I was injured and didn't make a cutoff. Somewhere, one was mile 64, and one was mile 74, where if you don't make the cutoff time, you were unable to finish. I would say my 100-mile races have been my most difficult challenge because there's so many factors that go into it. There's the mental factor. There's the fueling factor. If your fueling's not right, you can hallucinate. Your mood changes drastically. A lot of deep, dark emotions come out during that time. Your body can rebel against you at different times during. You can feel great sometimes. You can feel horrible at times. But I can remember one race. This was one that I finished thanks to my team because they helped me get through the dark times. I was really racing great through the first 45 miles. Somewhere around mile 45, something happened and my mind went into a very dark place. And for like the next 20 miles, I just had, I was just flooded with all these dark and self accusing and self deprecating thoughts just came to the surface. And you're a fraud and you can't do this. And, everybody is going to think you're a loser. And this went on for 5, 6 hours straight. And I was just having to keep moving forward, having to keep moving forward. And I was very fortunate because my crew, especially my cruise chief, my friend Sean, he saw that I was in big trouble. And so he actually ran with me and it was allowed to in the race for the next 9 hours. He was not prepared to run that day because he was just coming off his own big ultra and his body was really beat up. But he sacrificed himself, and I learned later that he actually sacrificed all his calories to give them to me too. He had no food for 9 hours. He was giving me his food. I was in such a bad state that I couldn't quite grasp what was going on. I just had to keep running. And he and my team got me through that really dark period. When I hit about mile 8, was probably about 85, my spirits really picked up, and then I was able to finish the race, which was just a tremendous thing. For me, it was the second 100-miler I had finished, but it was a much tougher 100-miler than the first one I did. There was a lot more mountains and trails and things like that. So I just tell that story to say, even though we think of our dreams and challenges as ours, I don't believe we can ever do it alone.
So, in terms of training for something like this, right? Are you training throughout the year, or do you train seasonally? Do you kind of spread it out over a couple of years? How do you train for something as big as this?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's different for different athletes. I think, athletes need to know their bodies and know what type of training is best for their development. And then they have like a periodization, that they set up for their training. My body seems to be happy when I keep moving. So I do train throughout the year, even though I have different cycles where I ramp down at different points of the year. Like after like a big race, I may take some time where I train very lightly, just a little bit of mileage. I get in the weight room, I bike, I just go for walks. So it's a very light training cycle. And then usually for a big race, 12 to 17 weeks before the race, I have all my training scheduled out, where every day I have scheduled. And if I miss 1 or 2 days during that 12 to 17 weeks, it's a lot. I don't miss a lot of training days because I really like to train and I like to be moving. My body seems to respond very well. But I have friends who can take long periods of time off, and for them, it works great. As I've gotten older, I do have to take more downtime. And I have cut back on my volume of training the last 2 years, because I was training 60, 70, 80, 85 miles a week, and I was in the weight room and I was doing a lot, and it was getting to be a bit much for I could kind of tell from my body. So I have backed off the last 2 years, and I run about 50, 60 miles a week, and during peak of training, I went up to about 75 miles a week. But so I really think it depends on the athlete and knowing your body, and then having a good plan. And then I think you have to hold that plan with an open hand. If I could say for anybody, whatever you decide, it doesn't have to be huge in the world's eyes, but it needs to be meaningful to you. So have a dream that's meaningful to you. Have a well researched plan, and then have a the goal, like the A goal and the B goal, which I think is a little different than the dream. The dream is kind of the bigger thing. The goal kind of leads to the dream, and the plan helps you get there. So that has helped me. I'm sure there's athletes out there that have ways that help them better, and I think that's great because we're all individuals.
Absolutely. And how does your family feel about your ultra pursuits?
My kids love it and have joined in. They've helped me at races. I've helped them at races, as some of them have started running longer races. I was with my son when he did his first 50K. I get to encourage them. They see me out having fun and doing things that I love doing. My wife, it's been kind of mixed emotions at times because she loves that it's meaningful to me and it's developed me. She sees the aftermath after a big race and how beat up I am. And she's a nurse and a very caring person. And she's a great athlete, but she doesn't love endurance sports that much. She likes shorter type events, and she's very good at those. So for her, I think she has mixed emotions because it's hard for her to understand why I would like running for 30 hours straight, or why would I allow myself to get so beat up that, I can barely walk across the parking lot to fall into my car after a race.
So what do you tell your wife about why you run 30 hours? I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this have the same question.
I think she realizes, and I've said this to her, honey, it's just the way I'm wired. I have athlete friends that are phenomenal athletes that are far better athletes than I am. And they said in their wildest dreams, they don't think they could ever, even if they trained, run 100 miles. But for some reason, I was given the gift to be able to do that. Yeah. And I really do enjoy it, even though it can be really painful at times, or at least highly uncomfortable. But I really do enjoy it. And I said, honey, it's just the way I'm wired. And for right now, I believe it's something that God wants me to do and that I need to do for a good purpose.
Pivoting into your fitness, coaching business, right? You are an electrical engineer by training, but you seem to have switched to a fitness coaching career. You have a pretty thriving practice in that space. So how did that switch happen? Was it like was it something that you did on the side as a hobby and then built it as a practice, or did you just one day decide, hey, I'm done with engineering, I need to get into something that calls my name?
No, it was more the former than the latter. I loved engineering. I loved designing state-of-the-art hardware, had a blast doing it. But I loved people more. And I thought, I'm working full-time as an engineer and I'm volunteering helping people. And there just came a point when I was like, I really want to switch this. I really want to spend my time helping people get where they want to go. And I was going to do engineering on the side. And what happened was, as soon as I switched to helping people, my schedule just filled up. And since 1994, it has stayed full. So wow. I never did go back to electrical engineering. But I really do love seeing people get where they want to get.
Terrific. And I was looking at your website. You also talk about some specialized nutritional strategies you use, like precision nutrition. So is that a method, system, or is it a customized thing you do for people, or is it a philosophy?
It's all of the above. Excellent question. I did get certified as a nutrition coach through Precision Nutrition. They're highly reputable. Some consider the best in the world. I don't argue those points. All I know is that it works really well. It worked well for me. It works well for my clients. But what it is, it's a sustainable habit-based coaching methodology to where we educate, and I educate people on how to live and eat in a way that will attain their goals, that's sustainable through all seasons of life.
So, are there any, if other, can you talk about some top three principles, core principles in this for the audience to kind of think about, as a nutritional strategy that is a part of
Certainly.
your practice?
Yeah, excellent question. Certainly, I think one of the things that really changed my paradigm is learning that many people are very focused on what they eat, and that is important. But sometimes I think that's like cutting your grass while your house is burning down. Your lawn will look nice, but your house burned down. You're in trouble. So, three principles that I think are very important. First one is slow down your eating. Slow down. For the simple reason that if while you're eating, if you're uptight, your sympathetic nervous system will kick in and your parasympathetic nervous system will shut down. And so, parasympathetic is rest and digest. So people say you are what you eat, but really you are what you eat, break down, and digest. And if you're uptight while you're eating and you're rushing or you're upset, it's really hard to digest the nutrients that you're taking in. So I encourage people, slow down. Plus, it takes time for your brain to release fullness hormones. So if you're eating fast, you may eat a considerable amount more calories than you actually need.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you feel stuffed because now your brain catches up. So one is slow down. One is eat off smaller plates. As a gross generality, Americans, we struggle with portion control. We tend to eat just too much food because we eat off big plates. We go out to eat and it's supersize me this and, all this food we get. And I like to think of it as like sipping fine wine instead of guzzling cheap beer. You can enjoy guzzling a cold, cheap beer, of course, but like there's something unique about the experience of sipping a fine wine or eating something and really tasting it. So slow down, eat more mindfully and calmly. Don't make dinner time the time when you're going to talk about tough issues because people get agitated. Make it a happy time. Make it a happy time for yourself. Like people like, I'm doing a working lunch. Okay, you can do that, but it's probably not in your best long-term interest. You're probably better off eating a smaller lunch, relaxed, and then going back to work energized. You'll probably get more done. And you'll digest your food better. So eat slow and mindfully, eat off smaller plates, and stop eating when you're 80% full. Now, there's nothing magical about 80%, but a lot of times we eat until we're super full. And by then it's too late. We've eaten too much.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go one step further, I'll even give you a fourth one. When you go to make your meal every day, just fill half your plate with vegetables before you do anything else. It's simple. You can do it. Everybody has some vegetables they like. I'm not even going to tell you what you need to eat. People say, Andy, should I eat this? Should I eat that? I say, well, do you like this? No, I don't like that. Well, it's like, well, don't eat it. Because you're not going to eat stuff you don't like long term. So find the things you like that add to your health, that get you where you want to be, and enjoy them and be happy.
Yep, totally. Very, very well said. I think some of the things that you said are actually, timeless wisdom. And
not original with me.
No, it's great. These are timeless wisdom, and it's very important that you're talking about it and bringing to modern lifestyle, because I think our ancestors didn't eat in a hurry. Ancestors didn't necessarily. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, my grandmom would tell me not to fight while eating, or things like just what you just said, which is,
yes,
when you're in a state of mind that is agitated, you're going to eat unhealthy, or you're going to make bad choices about your food. So sometimes you don't understand the correlation between that and your health, but what you just said kind of makes a lot of sense, and very important for us in our modern lives to adopt some of those principles. Amazing. That's great.
Yes. Well said. Well said. Yes. Yes.
Terrific. We're kind of coming up to the end of our conversation here. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to say as a final wrap-up comment?
Well, thank you. That's gracious, because I feel like I've probably overstayed my welcome in some ways. I've given an awful lot of to think about, I hope. But, I just want to say to people, don't give up, keep dreaming, be happy with the people in your life. And if you need a team to help you get there, it's good to humble ourselves and ask people to help us in our journey.
Terrific.
That was a hard one for me growing up, very self-sufficient, but that's a huge life lesson I've learned is I need my team, my wife, my kids, my friends, and most of all, my friendship with God. And I just feel like I can't do it myself. Call me weak if you want to, but I think it's important to bring your team into it. So I encourage people to not give up, live their dream, be happy with the people around you, and ask for help when you need to.
Awesome. Hey, Andy, I really appreciate you taking the time out and talking to us today. A lot of wisdom, a lot of amazing accomplishment in your life. We wish you continue doing this good work, and we'll keep a close tab on what you're up to next. And
thank you so much. It's been such a privilege to be with you, and I love your smile and your quick mind, and it's been a real pleasure. And I'll be out in 2 weeks doing the Georgia Death Race again, so hopefully I'll let you know if I make it, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
You too, Santosh. Thank you so very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.